part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason Bahamundi. Enduring Minds is where we explore the intersection of mental health and endurance sports while breaking the silence and stigma surrounding men's mental health. We're to have real, open, honest, and vulnerable conversations, sharing the struggles, victories, and everything in between that shapes who we are. So leave the shame, guilt, and fear at the door and join us for another episode of Enduring Minds. If you're new here, we kicked off the first 3 episodes by introducing Evan, Omen, myself as your hosts. You can find those episodes on the Run Try Bike YouTube channel and on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platforms. When you get there, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and now comment on Spotify, as that helps us grow the podcast and be able to tell more incredible stories. Today, I'm going to be joined by Shannon Booker. We'll be sharing a portion of Shannon's story in our digital magazine dropping on March 15th. In my 2 conversations with Shannon, I found myself getting energized by his presence and expect that this conversation is going to do the same. Shannon is the founder of the Soul Project in Atlanta, as well as being a city captain in Atlanta for Adidas runners. Running has been able to open a lot of doors for Shannon, but before that could happen, he had to figure out how to open the door for himself. Without giving the whole story away, let's bring Shannon onto the show and introduce him to Enduring Minds. Hey, Shannon, how are you this morning?
Hey, how are you? Good morning. Good morning.
I thank you so much. I said this in the green room before we got started, but time is the greatest gift you can give to somebody, and I cannot thank you enough for giving of your time to me for the 3rd time in just a handful of months. So thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
So I want to get started with how we how we did get connected. It's because your story appeared in the Running Lifestyle website after a conversation you had with Kimberly Valentine. And in that story, within like the first 3 or 4 paragraphs, I saw the words depression and anxiety. And it was something that I knew I wanted to talk to you about, because the idea of Enduring Minds is about breaking the silence and going the distance for men's mental health. Can you give us some background on depression and anxiety that you faced, and how did running help you, deal with that?
Oh, yeah, no problem. So I'd say in the around maybe 2015, I began to face, some struggles with depression and anxiety. It was all surrounded around, work, personal life. It was just like so much going on at one time. And within that time, I actually found distance running. I've always been a sprinter all my life. So got into distance running by being invited to a 5K. And I realized, I'm like, oh, this is something that's actually pretty cool and I might be good at. So begin to utilize running as a means of therapy, in a sense, to get my mind off of what I was dealing with. So that was how running and my mental health began its journey together.
So as you start going down this running path, what are you experiencing, and how is it helping you deal with that anxiety and depression? Are you finding, because you said you were a sprinter in our previous conversations, and you found running long, sprinting, I don't know if you're running the 100 meters, but, give or take 10 seconds, now running a 5K, which is give or take, 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Is it because you had the opportunity to think over those 20 to 30 minutes that you were able to start getting through some of the struggles you had?
I would say so, because, running just gives you an opportunity to just let your mind just free, right? You can think, you can just really just be out there and just feel relaxed. It's a sense of being able to, as I say, running away from, in the sense of what you were going through. So it's a moment where I can think about it, but I don't have to think about it. If I want to, I can just go for a run.
I know for myself, sometimes I say that, right? I'm just going to go for a run. And when I come back, I'm absolutely energized to do things, but I don't know that I've always come back energized to tackle the thing that I was running away from in the moment.
Right.
Are you capable of coming back and staying present with the reason why you went for that run in the first place, to get through that obstacle, or get around that obstacle, or get over that obstacle?
Yeah, so great question. So actually my early running and me, utilizing that to help with my depression and anxiety actually ended up not helping it per se, because I was finding myself getting sick a lot. And when I went to the doctor about what I was going through, he pretty much said, you're pretty much like running on fumes. It's like a car that needs gas and it's just running on the final fumes. So it's just like, hey, you're not doing yourself any service. Um, so what he suggests is like you really have to find a healthy outlet, get away from your triggers that are causing this. And at that time, he also had prescribed me some medication. After about a week, I'm like, yeah, I don't like the way this medicine make me feel. I don't want to feel like I have to be controlled by medicine. So I'm like, I need to do something healthy that's going to put me on a trajectory of a more peaceful, sound mind that I want. So with that, by the grace of God, I ended up getting a new opportunity. Left because I was in Florida at the time and moved to Atlanta and was blessed with an opportunity here in Atlanta where I found Movers and Pacers, which is the current run organization I'm a part of. And I found community, got to connect with different individuals here in Atlanta. And over time, I moved from running away from my struggles as I did in Florida to running through my struggles here in Atlanta. So it's just been a blessing finding community here in Atlanta through running to help me work through all my struggles, where it's like one of those things where I always say, be kind to people. You never know what they're going through, right? So for me, while all these people in the community never knew I was going through, just the general love, the support, and just the environment that the Atlanta running community provides is what really helped me get through my struggles. Now, it's not a thing of, oh, your struggles is over, just like that, right? I still have my days, right? We're
I
human.
wish.
Right. So for me, I still have my days, but I'll think back to those dark times. And I say, I don't want to go back to those dark times. So for me, really putting things in place to remain that peace that I'm looking for, and part of remaining in that peaceful space that I'm looking for, I no longer use running as a sense of dealing with issues I'm going with, because for me, I found I was carrying that, and it made my runs feel heavy, right? So for me, if I'm going through something, rather than going for a run, I'm going to sit in what I'm feeling, right? I want to understand what I'm feeling. I'm going to be okay with what I'm feeling, because running, in the sense, was me saying, like, it's not okay to feel this way. So I need to go run and not think about it and get it off my mind. Like, no, when you are dealing with stuff, sit in it, process it, feel it, know that it's okay not being okay. Now, on the other hand of that, you can't sit in your feelings too long, right? It's kind of like spilled milk analogy. Milk spills, clean it up. The longer you sit and watch it, it's going to smell. It's going to make things worse. So rather than sitting in this space of frustration, the depression of this, do something about it, right? Talk to someone, find a healthy outlet. I know people saying it may be easier said than done, and I agree. It is that way because a lot of people are telling me that, but it is possible. There is brighter days on the other side. What you're going through right now, folks, and anyone that's listening, is perfectly okay, right? Don't let no one tell you it's not okay. How you are feeling is perfectly fine. However, I encourage you to find that healthy space that's going to get you out of that dark space that you're in. And while we also often hear, running is therapy, running is therapeutic. Running is not therapy.
Louder
Yeah,
for the people in the back.
so for me, so running is therapeutic, is not therapy. So finding that therapeutic piece in it, while also finding what you really need to get through those struggles. And for me, like I said, through the grace of God, through community, and then through me just taking back control, is where I'm at now, where I can say, like, you know what, thank you, Lord, for getting me through this struggle. And it's because of you put me in that struggle, right? Because I believe he put me there. He's like, you know what, you have something to learn, right? So I'm going to put you in this space for you to see your own strength that you have within you, for you to work through what you're going through, so that you can look back and say, like, you know what, I did that, right? I don't want to go through that again, and I'm going to make sure I put things in place so I'm not back in that space.
There's so much good in that component that you just let out, and I want to kind of go backwards for a moment. We as men don't oftentimes just come out and share our vulnerabilities and our feelings.
Mhm.
And you found community with movers and pacers, but when you first started, was it difficult to be open and vulnerable to the people around you about the things that you were dealing with? Or did that confidence grow as you ran and got comfortable with them?
Right. And here's the great thing about it. Remember when I said earlier that, be kind to people because you never know what they're going through? I never had a conversation with anyone. It was
Okay.
just a general warmth that I received, the warmth of the community in Atlanta in general, the people I connected with that helped me get through those things. So, and then it was, I think I want to say maybe like 2017, 20. I need to look back. I had decided like, you know what? I'm going to put it all out there. So I wrote like this little like blog piece. I'm not a blogger, but I'm like, I'm going to write this and post it. And it was so like liberating to just like release it. It was like no longer this secret in a sense. Now there were some folks who knew I was going through struggle, but for the most part, no one, really, or they may have like, oh, Shannon may be going through something, but they just never said anything. So for me, I created a piece called "Feel Felt Found," right? And I talked about my struggles of this is what I felt, this is what I feel, this is what I found, right? And going through the whole thing, and I based my blog off of that to tell my story of that. Now, prior to that, I had a conversation with my mom, and in true parent fashion, it was I knew you were going through some struggles, right? But I wanted to wait till you were comfortable enough to come to me. So for me, it was liberating knowing that having the support of your mom and you, like I said, in true parent fashion, already knowing. But he's like, you know what, I'm gonna give you the space for when you're ready to come and talk. And then I received messages from different individuals just there, like you don't know how much that did for me by you sharing your story. Even people like I didn't know will reach out to me after I posted it, and I'm like me, it's just this is my story. Like we're all not perfect. We all have our struggles. So for me, really releasing that made me feel like good because the stigma of mental health is like I don't want people thinking something wrong with me. I don't want that. But it's like what? I don't care what they think. Right? I'm going to give my testimony because my testimony may be the breakthrough that someone needs to get through their struggle.
And I want to touch on that for a second, though, because we do care. Because although if you didn't care, you would have put that blog post out immediately, right? But there was something that was holding you back, and
Right.
I say that in this manner. So I came to grips with the reality that I had a disordered eating problem. My wife Lori, we talked about it, and I was like, I need to share this, and I typed out an article on our Run Try Mag website, and it sat in the back room for months. Like I'd go to it, I'd clean it up, I'd come back, I'd reread it, and I was just petrified of putting it out there. The struggle I had was, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? And then one day, I scheduled the article in advance, so it published whatever day it published, and I did not go to our website to read it. Like I just avoided it at all costs. But the weight that was lifted off my shoulders after the day was published allowed me to talk about it so freely that I put my own self in it within a confines by not talking about it.
Mhm.
When you published your blog post, was that weight like off your shoulders immediately and you're like, I welcome conversation? Or was it still some trepidation in what are people going to say to me? What are they going to ask me? How do I handle this? Like what were your feelings going through that moment?
So for me, because like you, it sat for a while. It was just there. Now, a good friend of mine's, she had knew about it, and she's like, "Hey, so when are you gonna post it? When are you gonna post it?" I'm like, "I'll probably post it soon. I'll probably post it soon, right?" And then one day I'm like, "You know what? Publish."
Did you run away like I did, or did you
Yeah,
like publish and then sit and watch?
yeah. I just published and just now it's out there. It's out there. But before I actually published what I wrote, I sent it to my family in our chat. That way, it was like, no, like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So I sent it to my family and everything. And even like some of my siblings who didn't know, they was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, thank you for sharing this. Like, we love you. Like, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
It was just, put it out there. And then, different people reaching out to me just saying like, hey, we're here for you. Thank you for sharing your story. Your story did a lot for me. We would have never known that you were going through this. And I'm like, for me, it goes back to my favorite quote by MLK. The ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand at times of comfort and convenience, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. So while I was going through that, right, my true character was still remaining steadfast.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever knew, like, well, Shannon's there. Now, close friends could see, like, okay, Shannon's a little off, but hey, I'm gonna respect the space. So for me, it was just a matter of showing that without who I am when I'm going through stuff is who I am when I'm not. And that's what important that people don't, have to understand that, sometimes their struggles can take you out of character, and that's okay, right? Because you're going through things. But overall, for me, it was a matter of just staying steadfast to who I am, pushing through and doing the inner work for me, so that I can get to uh, where I want to go. On the other side of the struggle.
One one of the things that made me smile is that you sent it to your family first, and the response was, "We love you. We didn't know this was happening, and or maybe we did, and we just wanted to give you space." When I talked to my sister about the things that I went through, it was the same response. And I wonder if your take on not talking to your family at first was similar to mine, where it was. So for me, I'm the older brother. My father passed away when I was 23 years old. So I was the quote unquote man of the house. My mother was extremely sick with Alzheimer's. And so again, trying to be the leader of the house put me in a position where if I show my thought process was if I show vulnerability, how am I going to help my sister out through, whatever she's going through? And so I didn't share my struggles. But when I did, I got that same response. We love you. We're here to help you. We thought something was wrong. Um, why were you not sharing with your family initially? Is it because of just the male traits
Yeah.
of we can't be vulnerable?
And I think that's what it is. Like when you think of the man, like you have to be strong. You can't be like no, you can't go through this. So for me, it was a matter of that. It was a matter of really understanding what it is I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way. Because naturally, when you put something out, there's gonna be questions, which is okay, right? And it's reasonable. So I need to make sure I was at a place where I can answer those questions effectively and not be like, well, I don't know. Well, I don't know, right? So I
Mhm.
was finally at that space where I can really articulate my feelings in a way where I didn't feel like I was holding anything back.
Did you feel like once you let that quote unquote cat out of the bag, that your confidence level like almost skyrocketed? Like, if I could talk about this, man, I could talk about just about anything, seriously.
Yeah. So the good thing about me, like I love people, so I'm just a talker. uh, so for me, I think so, and it's so like with me being like a talker, and at the time I worked in higher education, so I was working with students. I was always like front facing a lot of things, and that's another thing. Like I'm always front facing. I don't want my students to think like I'm not as strong as I come across. I don't want this, I facilitate this, I do this. So I think that was another part as well with the position I was at professionally and how I am as an individual. Like I'm just love people. I'm an extrovert, and I didn't want them to think like, well, oh, so is that not really him? Was that like his facade? So yeah,
You know, I'm you and I are the same. Like I teach at the college level. I have to get in front of a classroom of
yeah,
students and talk to them and present. And I'm extremely extroverted. Like if I see somebody squeezing a cantaloupe in the grocery store, I'm like, "Is it ripe today? Is it fresh?" Right? Like I'm just gonna have this conversation.
yeah,
And the reality for me is that once I started talking about my alcohol abuse and I started talking about my disordered eating and I talked about not being able to grieve the death of my father, that I got stronger in being able to talk about more things. It became, I don't know if it's
mm,
more extroverted, but I was able to become a person who was able to say to himself, I feel better about the conversations I'm having now, where I'm not protecting myself in the conversations that I'm having. And
yeah.
and it sounds like that's exactly what you went through a little bit as well.
Oh yeah. So now, like when it comes to sharing my story or just speaking of it, like I can speak freely of it because it's in there. Like I feel liberated now. Like it's out
Mhm.
there. It's no secret, but it's also I wanted to be able to share with others like what it did for me. So by me sharing what it did for me, it can really encourage someone to, you know, get on the pathway to get to where they want to be. Because sometimes people are just in that space because they're just stuck. Like I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like
Yep.
people saying it's going to get there, but it doesn't seem that way. Like just keep having that, keep having, and it's just like, hey, you're right. Like I was there. I
Yep.
I can't say I understand how you feel because how we're feeling is two different ways, but I can understand a feeling of you know confusion and not knowing what's going to be what.
I think one of the things that I keep replaying in my mind during this conversation is how we both wrote things down. And I think that's a lesson for people, right? If you're going through some struggles, write stuff down. You don't have to publish it for the world to see until you're comfortable to do so, but write stuff down and start working your way through it. Like I recently bought uh, a journal to start journaling. Like people talk about it all the time. And I was like, yeah, but I talk out loud about this stuff. Like I don't need to write it down. But once I started writing things down, like clarity of mind came about.
Yeah.
Um, are you still putting out blog posts or do you journal? Like how do you take care of that side of it in outside of running?
Yeah, no. So for me, when I did that blog, I'm not a blogger. I'm like, oh, blogging seems to be the thing. Let me go on this website and just write something, because that was my way of putting it out there. I'm like, well, how? So that was that. No blogger. It was just wrote a couple things that were on my mind. But for me, kind of like I write things down. So for me, when it comes to like practicing good emotional intelligence and working through things, what I do is I write things down, right, and I throw it away, because that's my way of getting it out, releasing it, and then just tossing it. So during the pandemic, I was unfortunately one of the millions who lost their job, right, and went through a whole lot during the pandemic. So what I did, and I've shared this with some friends, actually wrote a letter to the pandemic to express my anger, and I wrote it all out there. And for me, it was just releasing. It may sound crazy, but for me, it was just like it was good. Like I was able just to type it out, and it was my letter to COVID, and how it made me feel, and I just released it, and just kept pushing through. And for me, so that's what I do. Even and so far, even when it comes to work, life, text messages, let me write it down what I'm feeling, so that my response is okay. So the actual live response that's going out is okay or got it. But everything I really wanted to say was already written down and released. But what actually went live was a simple okay.
Joe Harden, who is one of our podcast hosts on Beyond the Finish Line, he has in the past, and he recently picked it up again, a video that he posts where he writes down, a negative thought or something that's holding him back, and he crumbles it up and throws it in the garbage can. Like, and he's recording this and he's sharing it with the public to see, which is exactly what you're talking about, which is I'm going to write something down, which allows him to process, which probably allowed you to process, and then you crumble it up and throw it away and release it, and you move on to the next thing, which I think is a phenomenal visual for people, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing that's holding me back. I'm throwing it in the garbage so I can move forward. One of the things you mentioned earlier was MLK, and obviously the leader of the civil rights movement, which is something that we are clearly still going through in today's landscape. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the Atlanta Run for Justice and Equality. Yeah. And the reason behind you organizing that. What were you hoping to get out of it, not just for the community, but also for yourself?
Yep. So during that time was, this country just in the uproar, right? With all the systemic issues that was happening, particularly around George Floyd, Black Lives Matters. It was just like so much going on. And I'm like, I want to do my part, right? But I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. I want to do something that's going to create a space where it's not like people just going back and forth. It's just a space where we can create like-minded conversation and just enjoy the space that we're in. So I reached out to a buddy of mine. I said, hey, I got this idea. Let's put together like this run and call it, the ATL Run for Justice and Equality. While people may have different views, may sit on different sides of the aisles, in this one moment, we're all runners in the community. And he was just like, let's do it. This was on a Wednesday that I reached out to him via IG. So went on Canva, we created a flyer, posted it, and we did the run on that Sunday. So we got there, and one of the local news stations was there. So we just like, oh, cool. But where the run is at, they normally broadcast from there because of like the city, line that's in the background. So I'm like, oh, they probably just doing their morning, nothing, whatever. So they came to us like, hey, so are you sharing the book? I'm like, yeah. They're like, hey, so we'd love to, interview you. We heard about this run that you put together. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So then, different people are coming up, people are running. So I'm like, oh, people just out running, not thinking they're here for the event. Then it was remember the manager from the local Target that's right there pulled up, say like, hey, we want to contribute to this. We saw what you're doing. We saw it online. Would you mind if we donate some waters and like some little granola bar? I'm like, sure. And the more people were coming, I say that to say it ended up being like close to about 200 people who came out that day. And what was amazing about it, we went for a run, came back, and we had an intentional conversation around what was taking place. Um, and it just gave allowed everyone to express their feelings about what was going through in a unified way, not a divisional way, not a way that was causing a disturbance to the general community, right? Because even with the protest stuff, like you had people that were just annoyed with a bunch of people on the street, but we're able to do it in a way where we cause minimal disruption. Now, with a lot of people, sometimes cars got to slow, but it's minimal disruption. But we still got the point across. We brought the community together, and it was just an amazing thing to do. And from there, people reached out to me and said, like, Shannon, you got something going. You should keep this going. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm going to keep doing something, I want it to be done with a purpose and not just doing something because I'm drawing all these people out, because it defeats the purpose of why I originally wanted to do what I did. So from there, I, hosted other community that like run walks with the intention of having an intentional conversation around it. So from there, I did something around Juneteenth. A lot of people came out, and we had a discussion about that. And what was great about that, had a guest speaker come and talk about, what Juneteenth is and the importance of it, because you had, individuals who heard of the holiday but didn't know what the holiday was. You had people within the African American culture who know the holiday but didn't truly know what it was. So it gave an opportunity to educate on Juneteenth, celebrate Juneteenth, and bring the community together. Other events that I did some collaborative events with local LGBT organizations, with groups around wellness and mindfulness. I did a back to school drive. So it was just a lot of things that I was able to do within that space. And I called it Social Fitness ATL. Now, with anything in life, you have to know that things has its time, right? And you have to know when it's time. So we had a good run, and it just, faded out, nicely. But for me, I told people, like, it served its purpose.
It's going to leave a lasting impact for
Right.
sure.
It served its purpose because it brought people together, and I was able to meet so many people through that. I even got the support from Atlanta Track Club, which is one of the largest track organizations in the country,
Yep.
and they do so much here in Atlanta. So they will come out, the CEO will come out, different members. It was just so amazing just seeing the support from the community. Where it was a thing where we just trying to bring everyone together for community, to educate, to unify, because as we both know, that was just a crazy time.
To say
Right?
the least.
Yeah, and for me too, doing all that was therapeutic for me, because I was without a job. I had lost my job. So we was furloughed in April, hoping for things to happen. And in June, they said, like, hey, we're letting you all go. So for me, going through all that, building, a soul project and creating community, well, for me was a therapeutic way of not focusing on the bad, but focusing on the good and what I can do for the community. Because I told people, I said I was refusing to allow my situation to determine me, or me as a person, right? I wasn't gonna wear it on my sleeve. Like, what I'm gonna wear on my sleeve is the happiness, the community person, the energy that I always bring. Because I don't want to wake up every day like, oh gosh, I have a job, I'm tired of work, blah, 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 blah. I want to get up every day and spend the day and thankful for the day. And I tell people, I got up every day blessed, and I went through my day as if I was going to that job. So for me, I was, giving praise and living my life as if I already had the blessing that I knew was coming my way. And that's why I always tell people, you're gonna go through things, but live today as if you have what you are looking to get in the future, and that's how it's going to come.
You're talking about, Social Fitness ATL, Soul Project, and one of the things you mentioned was a friend said to you, "Hey, Shannon, you got something going on here. Are you going to do more?" And that's what happens with leaders. And I wonder, as people are volunteering you to do more stuff, how do you handle that stress? Because it's like, oh, I need to go do X because somebody thinks I should do it. And as leaders, oftentimes we just keep carrying that burden. And so I'm wondering, how do you deal with those burdens when either people are volunteering you to do stuff, or you've taken things on because you think to yourself, this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden, it becomes more work than you expected it to be.
Right. So for me, that was a big struggle, because it's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I do it. Right. And I was just wearing myself down. And it was at the end of 2022 that I said, I can't keep doing this. I need to put some parameters in place, some boundaries in place, because this is just not healthy for me. And it's getting to the point where I'm not enjoying things as much as I used to, because I'm just like so stressed, and it's just like I have to do this, I have to do that. Plus, I have my job, but then and it's just like no, absolutely not. So for me, it was getting to that point where I was just like physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, where I was like, I need to put these parameters in place, because I'm just not enjoying it the way I used to.
And when you do that initially, because I've done the same. Like
Yeah,
honestly, talking to you is like reading my own mind. Honestly, I've put those things in place as well. And initially, there is more stress. Like, oh, I'm going to disappoint somebody because I'm not capable of doing this. But over time, I have found it has given me more energy to be more present for the things that I am allowing in.
yeah,
Is that something that you have noticed as well?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And for me, it was also those friends, those true friends, because I would say a true friend is one that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Hmm.
So it was a true friend saying like, yo, you gotta chill a little bit. Like you're wearing yourself. Then we can see it in your face. We can see it in your responses. We can see it in your nonchalantness sometimes. Where I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm good, right, and it's not intentional, and they know it's not intentional, but they know it's because you're exhausted. You're carrying too, in a sense, like your buddy, yo, Shannon, you're doing too much. Chill.
I think we need those people in our lives, and what we need to do is hang on to them, and not let them slip away. So sending that text message, making that phone call, hey, I'm thinking about you. Um, and I think as men, it can be difficult for us to do that, right?
Right.
To be able to reach out to a friend and say, hey, how are you feeling? So I've made it a point to at least once a week reach out to a friend
Yeah.
via text or phone call to say, hey, I was just thinking about you. I hope all is well. They don't have to respond. I'm not
Yeah.
asking them for a story in return. How do you stay connected with those friends so that they know that you're there for them and you know that they are there for you?
So for me, it's just keeping them updated on different things. I'm going to be intentional on having conversations, and just make like, hey, appreciate you reaching out to me. Appreciate that, because sometimes, and it's sad, the people sometimes who are the most helpful ones, the ones that's really doing things, are the ones that's not really receiving things in return.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we're not looking for that, right? We're not looking for that, but it's just in there. Like sometimes, just having that person say, like, Shannon, relax, sit down for a
Hmm.
moment. Like it's okay. It feels
Yep.
good. But sometimes like you just want to go, but having a person just say like I got you. Because like in our sense, we got other people, right? We're doing it. But just to hear somebody say, I got you. Let me know what you need. Like you don't have to do it all on your own. I got you.
It is so powerful. I'm very fortunate that I get to talk to my wife all day, every day. We work right next to each other, and I get to express, the ups, downs, insides, and outs of my life with her, and she sees it. But when you get an email from somebody who's like, "Hey, I saw something on social media, or the way your face looked on a post, like, are you okay? Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
Like, it can bring me to tears because it's like, wow, somebody recognized me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to it all, right? The message that you send to your friends is, I see you. And that's really all that is, but
Mhm.
it's so powerful.
Right. And I tell you like it does. People don't realize how much that does for, especially someone that's always on the go. Just like, because sometimes I'm like, gosh, I just want to breathe. Like sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm just like I'm struggling to stay above water.
I won't bullshit you, man. This morning I woke up and I was like, I would just love to lay in bed all day,
Yeah,
but I have this show I need to produce and get out on. It
yeah.
was like one of those mornings. Like, I think the time change, I'm 51 years old now and I've never experienced this before, but I think the time change in my 51st year of life has had the biggest impact. I'm like, why am I tired again this morning? Like,
Right.
where's the sun? I need the sun. One last question, before we drive into some other components of our Enduring Minds
Yeah.
podcast is, you mentioned that running has allowed you to make an impact in the community. And
Mhm.
so I want you to think back to that first 5K and running away from your problems to running through your problems. How does the community help you keep that going today? And
Yeah.
and is your community more than just the movers and pacers? Is it more than just Adidas runners? Is it, social media strangers? Like, what does the community look like for you today?
Yep. So for me, my running journey, distance running first started in 2012. Did a 5K, and I did that reluctantly. I did not want to run that 5K, but it was supporting for a colleague. So I got out there, did it, and it was the most painful thing. But when the race was over, she came to me. She's like, "Hey, so you really never done like a distance race like that?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, you finished in the top group." I'm like, "I don't know how, but okay, cool." And from there, like like just and being competitive, I'm like, "Oh, I might be good at this, so let me try this again." And I just kept getting better and better. So I'm like, "Okay, this is cool." And then in just finding that joy in just running, which I'm like, this is really fun. I realized like, let me just go for a run, try to get this stuff off my mind, right? And I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this until I realized I was just not balancing it with proper eating and hydrating because I was just going through so much at time when I started dealing with my struggles where I was just running. I don't have no appetite. I'm just gonna go run, and then go to sleep. And then I said came to Atlanta, found a running community in Atlanta, and it wasn't a matter of any conversation. It was just being around people. It's just I don't know what it is. Something special about the running community. Like it's something unexplainable. That when you get in community, it's just something that it just does something to you. And for me, it was just the community of people, and then from moves and paces, being able to interact with uh, members in the general running community, Black Men Run, West Midtown Run Crew, uh, Atlanta Run Club, Run Abroad. It's just like so many amazing groups here in Atlanta over the years that interact with. It just individuals, period, that I got to interact with and support. When I think globally, from being an ambassador with Lululemon to now being Adidas runners to running London, running Tokyo, and finding now like even global community of people I can reach out to. I have a buddy in London, Charlie Black, well known in the running space. Sometimes reached out to him for for guidance, around things, particularly when it comes to leading, in the running space. He's he does amazing things in London with his run group, and he's actually globally known. So that was just a global community that I have right there, and it's just amazing. Where I never would have thought that it would get to the point where it'll expand beyond Atlanta, where I can truly say I have a global community around me that supports, what I do in the community, what I support, what I do with the Soul Project, and it's just amazing. Where again, it's not necessarily having conversations, just finding the community that aligns and got me through a lot, and it's just wonderful.
Before we move into the next segment of the show, I want you to expand a little bit on the Soul Project because it's, to me, just a great thing that you do for the community in Atlanta. Can you just expand on what the Soul Project is and what you're doing there?
Oh, yep. So the Soul Project actually began as a passion project for me. I always had the name like Soul Project in my mind, but I just never knew what I wanted to do with it. So during the pandemic, around the holiday season, I'm like, you know what? I got all these shoes. I'm gonna do a shoe drive, right? So went on Canva, created a flyer, say, hey, I'm doing a shoe drive. I'm calling it the Soul Project Holiday Shoe Drive. Didn't think much of it. I figured, like, with all my friends in my community, I'll get some shoes. At the end of that first time, I ended up collecting over 180 pairs of shoes and raised like $600. So I'm like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool. So I reached out to a buddy of mine who's worked like within the space. I said, hey, wasn't expecting this turnout. I said, so can you connect me with organizations in Atlanta that I could donate to, and what are you suggesting? So he connected me with an organization called Safe House Outreach here in Atlanta. So I went there on Christmas Eve, brought the shoes with me, helped feed the homeless, and I passed out shoes. With the money that was raised, I purchased like hats, gloves, socks, and toiletry items as well. And then on Christmas Day, all like the hats, gloves, and socks, I actually wrapped them in like gift paper, and I drove around the city just passing them out, to the homeless and with the hygiene items. Put together hygiene kits and just kept them in my car and just passed them out as I was going. and just continue to do that. And now I just wrapped up my 5th season this past holiday of doing the Soul Project Holiday Drive. And since 2020, I have collected over 3,000 pairs of shoes, made over like about 1,000 hygiene kits, clothing, socks, and it's just been a blessing. And what's special about my organization is that everything that's collected stays with here in the Metro Atlanta area. Oftentimes, uh, you donate somewhere, you don't know where it's going, you don't know where it's going to end up, but everything that we collect with the Soul Project benefits our community. And what's special to me when it comes to the Soul Project is that for me, it's my way of giving to others the way running gave to me. So for me, just giving, and it's been an amazing journey. And our mission is to inspire hope and contribute to the well-being of those less fortunate. And I'm just so blessed and grateful for um, the support I get from the community. Big thank you to Big Peach Running Company here in Atlanta. They've been a big support since day one, serving as a drop-off site for me. So Mike and his team with Big Peach, thank you so much, because that's really been helping keeping it going. And over the past 2 years, it's grown so much that before the first 3 years or so, I was able to, within my place, sort and pack up shoes. But past few years, I've been able to host MLK Service Day projects where the community came out and we will sort through all the donations that was received, and we box them up to be prepared for delivery to the local organization. So yep, so that's the Soul Project, and it's just a blessing being able to bless others in the Atlanta community.
That is absolutely amazing. Because we are a live show, sometimes we get questions from our audience, and one
Yeah,
has come in from
yeah.
my co-host Evan Birch, who is traveling on his way to Toronto today, and he asked, "What is one of the most powerful stories you have witnessed from those that you have helped along the way?"
So for me, and this goes to like a Soul Project. Um, and I have two. So first was the Soul Project. So with the Soul Project, I remember, I think it was maybe my second year doing it. It was at the Safe House, and it was a gentleman who came to get a pair of shoes, and he put them on, and the way he was excited and walked up and down, place showing everybody the pure joy. I'm like, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. Being able to just put that smile on his face, because to him, these were a brand new pair of shoes. To someone else, it was a secondhand. I wasn't wearing them, but his world just lit up. He went to every single person in the room so they can see his shoes. And for me, it was just, it was heartwarming.
Um, I don't know if you've seen Jerry Maguire, but in the movie, Rod Tidwell, who's played by Cuba Gooding Jr., tells Roy Firestone, "You're not going to make me cry, Roy. You're not going to make me cry. So Shannon, you're not going to make me cry. You're not going to make me cry." But, like, sometimes it's often the simplest things that have the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be this uber grandiose gesture. It could be as simple as a pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And for every runner who's in Atlanta, I know that you have a pair of running shoes sitting in your closet that you are telling yourself, one day I'm going to run in them again, and you're just not.
Yeah.
So get them over to the Soul Project and get more stories like the one that Shannon just shared, because that's impact.
Right, and it is. And then when I look at a great story when it comes to the impact on the running side outside of the Soul Project. So with Adidas runners, the whole purpose of with Adidas runners here in Atlanta is like really around community, reaching out to that beginner runner, or that runner that may be a little intimidated. So create that space where they feel welcomed, and it's not so competitive and so performance driven. So when I was planning for our launch this past summer, I said, I want to make sure I create that space where everyone feels welcome, no one feels intimidated, and it's just a really encouraging space, right? So hosted the first run, and the way I am, I believe we start together, we finish together. So I'm always going to be, between front and back, just keeping everyone motivated and coming in with the last runner. And this is one young lady who came to our first run. Her name's Sierra. And just being me, I'll just start running with her. She's like, "Oh no, you don't have to." I'm like, "Oh no, this is what I do. We going, finish together." So the next day she created like a reel, and she's like, "Hey, you also, I never thought I would ever run with a run club. Me being, a runner, like that's not me. I'm not going to do that because I let everyone feel left behind." She said, "But I met this guy named Shannon at the Adidas Runners captain. He was so supportive. And then when I came in, everyone clapped me in. And she ended with like, I found community. I found my running space. And that was just like so rewarding because what I set out for Adidas Runners Atlanta to be is what we showed it to be on the first day. And this was someone who prior to coming, she did running on her own individually, but was never was kind of in a sense intimidated to come in a general running space with a group of people. Since then, which was in August, she has now created her own running space called Because I Can Runners. And it's a virtual space where she attracts so many people. She has now blown up as far as on social media, where she's known across the country. She's actively involved in the running space. And for me, I'm like, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Just being that light for someone to say, like, hey, come on, we community. I got you, right?
Yep.
And just seeing her blossom and seeing all that's been transpiring for her has just been so amazing. And which is even great for this new season, I was able to bring her on my team with Adidas. So she's actually a part of our Adidas official crew here in Atlanta. So it's just a blessing. And again, first day, what I set out for it to be, she saw it, and it really helped her to feel more comfortable in joining other run spaces, which now she has her own run space, and not only in Atlanta, but she created a chapter in LA as well, that she has a team. So, and that's a blessing. And this is in less than a year. So that just shows you how good God is. And when you put your all into something and you really want it, what happens?
Well, we're out here in LA, so we're going to keep the dominoes falling. You're going to have to connect me with her so that we can go and run and hang out and chit chat with her.
Yeah.
So this segment of our podcast that we're moving into now is called Stop, Start, Continue. It's based on the Japanese tradition of misogi.
Yep.
So at its core, misogi is about transformation, shedding old habits, beliefs, and ideas, embracing and letting in a new and more powerful version of yourself, while letting go and surrendering in order to grow. And we're going to invite our Enduring Minds community to be a part of this in a bigger way in the future. But we're going to put it on to you now, Shannon. So stop. If you had to choose one mental or emotional habit you want to leave behind this year, what would it be and why?
Stop feeling the need to do everything, because it burns you out and it ends up you not enjoying things the way you used to.
I feel that in my core. Thank you. I'm going to join you in that process.
Yeah.
Start. If you were to commit to a radical mental shift this year that would force you to grow in new ways, what would it be and why?
For me, and it's something that I already started doing, start running for enjoyment, not for time. I say that because I got so caught up on time that I was forgetting to enjoy the journey. October 2022, ran Detroit Free Press Marathon. I was just zoned in on my training. I'm zoned in, wasn't missing a workout. Get to that race, mile 21. I remember there was a gentleman who was approaching me, and he looked over. He says, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Less than a minute after that, I collapsed on the ground in the back of an EMT. Didn't finish the race. Right, that race I was pacing a good maybe like around like 6:45, 6:50. I was feeling good. After that, got home. The doctor said, you exhausted yourself. You put too much and your body just finally gave out. And when I sat back and was reflecting on my training journey, I couldn't remember much of anything because I was so finished on focus that I did not enjoy the journey. So for me, in my running space, it's focusing on the journey, focusing on experiments rather than time. So I'm running for fun, running for enjoyment rather than time. While naturally I still want to maintain a nice pace, my focus is to finish and have fun.
Yeah, we actually have a series on our website called Enjoying the Journey for that exact reason. Like, remember those moments in training so that you can really enjoy those moments at the finish line.
Yeah.
So the last one, continue. If you had to symbolically cleanse or renew one aspect of your mental health in the next year, what would that be and why?
Continue staying true to the boundaries that I have been put in place, and understand that, hey, Shannon, you're human. You can't be at many places at one time. It's okay to say no, right? People will be okay, and just keep pressing on. So an example of me having to say like a hard no in a sense and respect that boundary. So Movers and Pacers, one of our weekly runs is on Sundays, and you could tell me that I was a favorite. Every Sunday I'm there running, having a good time. But going back to the situation I mentioned with Detroit, with passing out, I feel that situation was a way of the Lord telling me, like, hey, you need to come back home to the church, right? So I'm gonna get your attention one way or another. So got back, back in church and affiliated with Change Church here in Atlanta. It's an amazing church. I'm so thankful for me being a part of that ministry. And from my involvement in that ministry and Dr. Darius Daniels and what he poured into me through the Made Men ministry with Made Men and the cohort that I went through for our 12-week training, I put myself in a place where I want to continue my faith journey, right? In order to continue my faith journey in this sense and not backpedal and get to where I am, I have to be committed, you know. So I end up telling, team at Moving Space, like, hey, unfortunately, I won't be able to be commit to Sundays anymore. Now, for special run things that we may do on Sunday, I will go, but that was a hard line boundary that I set where on Sundays, I will be at Change Church serving where I lead our parking lot team and just also enjoying service. So again, I will, just gonna just keep being me, keep loving, keep enjoying, and doing big things.
Well, you radiate big energy, man. The smile is infectious, so keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and your willingness to share pieces of your story with us today. Final thoughts, words of wisdom. Where can people connect with you and what you're doing out in the world?
Yep. So you can connect with me on my IG at book 1914. You also follow Adidas Runners at Runners Atlanta to stay up to date on what we have going on. Um, the Soul Project ATL on Instagram as well. And to everyone that's out there that's going through a struggle, I want you to know that it's okay, right? You have a community around you. And if you feel that you don't have a community around you, Shannon R. Booker at Gmail, book 1914. Reach out to me. I will be your community. I will be an ear to listen, right? If you just need someone to listen, reach out to me. I got you. It's okay what you're going through. Put in place what you need to do to get through the struggles and know that it's going to be okay. God got you. Let's go.
Really appreciate you being willing to take on personal emails. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Shannon. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to thank the audience for joining us on Enduring Minds episode 6. We're a proud part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, one of 9 incredible shows. So please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and now comment on Spotify for our show, as it will continue to help us bring incredible guests like Shannon Booker and his captivating story to the Enduring Minds community. Our next episode will be on March 27th, so make sure you check it out. Just hang on to @RunTryMag on Instagram, and you'll get promotions on our upcoming guests and shows. So until next time, let's continue going the distance